I think it's a pretty clear message. He was in New York and he didn't go on to Washington in the same way that all those other Pacific leaders are doing, and in the same way that he did last year. And Washington will really feel, they've said it's disappointing, and they've lost their chance to woo Sogavare. He had a big trip to Beijing in July where he upgraded ties with Beijing. In his speech to the United Nations at the weekend, he called China the lead infrastructure partner and really praised China. So this really is a lost opportunity for the United States with Sogavare and Solomon Islands. But, there are a dozen other Pacific leaders that they'll be doing their best with offers of infrastructure funding. They'll talk about climate change and maritime security to really offer an alternative to China as an aid and development partner in the Pacific.
Yeah, it does look as if the Solomons have crossed that Rubicon. Now, Vanuatu's Prime Minister is also missing the meeting. He does have domestic challenges at home. He's just recently elected, but are there other factors at play?
This is really complex as well. So today, a political crisis continues in Vanuatu. The opposition now claim that they have the numbers and that they have lodged another no confidence motion that will be debated a week from now. A member of the government, a minister, was dismissed from his seat by the Speaker. There's real confusion at the moment. So you can see why the new Prime Minister, Slattery Kilman, who's only been in that role for 2 weeks, felt that neither he nor his foreign minister or anyone from that government could spare the time to go to Washington. But this is another country that the United States is really concerned about. So the 5 years before the COVID lockdown, Vanuatu had become very close to China. It's the largest external creditor. China built the parliament, the prime minister's office, the roads, stadium. So this is a key nation that the United States wanted to get back in the game with. Now, the last summit, they said that they would open an embassy in Vanuatu. That hasn't happened yet. The previous prime minister was seen as not so much siding with the West over China, but trying to widen its diplomatic partners, dialogue with France, striking a security agreement, which later became controversial with Australia, but wanting to diversify. With this political turmoil in Vanuatu, Washington wouldn't know where they stand at the moment.
Yeah, so true. You talked about some of those issues that might be on the agenda for this meeting, but is the undertone, the undercurrent constantly China's influence?
Without doubt. And, the White House themselves said it with, setting the tone for the first summit. It's about trying to stem China's influence and, just this idea of economic coercion that, there's been a decade now where China has gone in with infrastructure lending, and the debt levels in some of these countries are so high. And the concern is that gives China leverage as it tries to expand its security and perhaps even military presence in this region.
It was fascinating too, Kirsty, to see Timor-Leste courting China as well, or China courting Timor-Leste, a new government there, but an old hand in charge in Timor-Leste. How sort of tenuous is that position at the moment?
So I think the Australian government has been watching Timor-Leste quite closely since this Labor government came in. And, mentioned, Xanana Gusmao as an old hand. He's signed a comprehensive strategic partnership with China on a visit to China, in the last few days. Separately, Jose Ramos-Horta has said in another interview, this doesn't mean that we're aligning with China. We have partnerships with Australia as well. But, in the statement that was put out by Chinese state media, I've had a look on the Timor-Leste parliament. There's no statement up there yet, but it was said to include military exchanges, infrastructure funding, and potentially investment in gas, which, you can imagine is the Greater Sunrise Project. So this will be something Australia will be watching, very carefully if they were concerned about the potential of security ties between China and the Solomon Islands, 2,000 kilometres away. Timor-Leste is a lot closer to Darwin, and, the Australian government has said very little today about this.
Yeah, and it is difficult because, I think China has deep pockets and it is very determined to try and get a greater footing, but it just feels like it's closing in quite a lot.
And for a country like Timor-Leste, where poverty and, youth unemployment, and it's really important for them to provide growth and development opportunities for their people. And this is something that Pacific Islands themselves are saying, like, we have to put our own populations first. So they're really in a tough position when have a major superpower coming along and offering deep pockets.
Kirsty, really great to get your analysis. Thanks so much.
Thanks for your time.